Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
No, my name is Mike Piwowarski. I come to you live from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most, with the co-host with the most. Here on the Rundown, 2A Views, conservative news. Craig, how was your weekend?
It was it was interesting. It was interesting. Last week we had the COVID made the appearance for the first time in the DeLuz household. It ran roughshod through pretty much the entire house. So just kind of, dealing with okay, I can't do this, I can't go there, you can go there, but I can't go there because I'm positive and you're negative and yada. Anyway, so we kind of did the COVID dance and I did the lawn.
You got like what variant? You got like variant Zulu or something like that now, or
Pretty much, yeah. It's like the Oma cold light.
yeah. This is the one where you wake up and your hair's bad. You know you got the COVID. Oh, I got bad hair day. It's COVID Zulu.
Well, here's how lame it was. I tested positive last Monday, and I was testing negative by Wednesday.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, let's give up 2 years of our lives, folks, for this. Let's do it.
Exactly. But hey, guess what? My antibodies are all bumped up now.
So did you stay home and flatten your curve?
You know what? While I was testing positive, I did not go anywhere out of respect for other people. Once I was testing negative, then I was out and about as normal.
Doing everything short of trying to get the monkeypox.
Yeah. It definitely was short of trying to get the monkeypox.
So what I'm saying, folks, is he went about his regular life without, trying to get the monkeypox wouldn't be his regular life, but you still go out and protect yourself.
In my regular life, I am not doing anything that would lead me to potentially catch the monkeypox.
I know, and your wife writes me letters about that too. So,
yeah,
complaining.
Anyway, folks, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. However you're watching us, encourage your friends to do the same. YouTube, Facebook, Rumble. You can watch on Spotify. You can also find us. You can listen to the audio version of the program wherever you get your podcast. So tune in once again and encourage your friends to do the same. And by the way, make sure you support our sponsors.
That's right. Make sure you take a look at our good friends over at Hitman Industries. It's hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. If you've gotten a AR in the past 5 or 10 years, there's about 50% chance you've already got their product in your house. They're a barrel manufacturer. Let's see. Then we go to the California Republican Assembly. They're fighting the good fight behind the Iron Curtain. And of course, if you want some awesome tactical gear, go to uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. The links to all of our sponsors are in the description to this program. Please visit them. If you like what you see, kick them down some cash and let them know that the guys over at The Rundown sent you. Let's jump right into it today, shall we? New York. I know you're wondering, what exactly do they mean by this? And, what's happened today was we have in a few areas, we have multiple stories that I just could not pass on, right? The first story you have here is in New York City. Get a rope. They have instituted some emergency rules in order for an individual to be able to get a concealed carry permit. Now, Mike, I have to admit, I did not get a chance to dig into the details of this, of what the rules are. But I know that our good friend John Richardson over at No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money kind of broke it down. And what was your takeaway from this particular piece?
Oh, I didn't read it either. I thought you were going to. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. In New York City, I don't know where. This is the NYPD that's decided this. They're the ones that make the rules for the issuing of the firearms. Well, they're half of the decision makers there, and we'll get into that. They have decided, because they had some modifications since Brewing case, and it really hasn't gone anywhere. People have gotten the runaround because it's been. Listen, I'll give a little bit of to their credit that it happened so fast. They had no response for it. They were looking at it ahead of time, but you didn't know what Bruin was going to say until Bruin came out. So they didn't know which provisions to drop and which to keep in and which to emphasize. So they finally came up with a plan, and their plan says, okay, you can go get you a firearm. uh, and the requirements are you do not have to turn in a letter of necessity like you used to have to do. That was their valid reason clause, right? You had to have a good reason to have it. You do not, or you have to send a letter that says I will get training. You have to send a letter that says I will keep it stored safely. So they've kind of really made it pretty simple to get right now. The only problem is you have to have your fingerprints done, right? Well, the NYPD doesn't do fingerprints. Well, they do, but you're going to Rikers if you get them done. But they don't do civilian fingerprint applications. Many people don't know, Craig. There's this thing that exists called the New York City Sheriff's Department, and they serve like writs, or eviction notices, that kind of stuff. Civil. They serve the subpoenas around town. That's their job. They have no real active law enforcement role other than doing, follow-ups and things like that. But they're the ones that do the fingerprints. Well, they came out with a policy last week that said, we're stopping all fingerprints until September 1st. And September 1st is when the legislature there in New York is supposed to have a new set of rules to get your firearm. So you have one agency telling you, okay, here's what you do to get it. It's pretty simple. You have another one saying, that's fine, but we're not giving fingerprints. And then finally the legislature saying, this all changes September 1st.
So what that reminds me of. So I remember when my father got out of the military. He was in the Air Force. He was a trained electrician. This was right after World War II, and he went to join the Electricians Union. And now, while they did not discriminate on color at that time, in order to join the union, your father had to be a member of the union. Well, there was a problem because prior to when my father was born, first of all, my grandfather was not an electrician. But secondly, if he had been an electrician at the age where he could have been, at that point, they did not allow people of color or black people to become members of the union. So therefore, he had a chance to join the union, but not really.
Yes.
And that's how this works.
Yep.
It's like you can get a permit, you just can't get the stuff you need to get a permit.
Correct.
It would be like saying you can buy a gun, but you are not allowed to buy ammunition.
Yeah, I think this is even worse than that, right? This is the promise of we're going to let you buy a gun, but we're not going to let you. Yeah.
Exactly. We're going to make it really
we're going to let
easy
you buy a gun, but we have
for you to get a promise that we'll let you get a gun.
Yeah. We're going to let you buy a gun. You just have to fill out the background form. Oh, I'm sorry, we're all out of background forms.
Well, Mike, and see, now this is in the backdrop of the other New York story. And I don't know if you heard about this story. So there was a cabbie who was basically who was attacked and who was beaten, right, by an individual who, quite frankly, was supposed to be at the time. He was let out on a early release program, right?
Okay.
And now you have the cabbie union. So we had a guy who was basically beat to death, and you have now the cabbies union is losing their minds with New York State politicians, basically telling them, look, you guys need to stop letting these guys who are committing crimes back out on the streets. But Mike, what's funny, what they refuse to acknowledge is these are the people who you keep giving your money to. These are the people you keep putting in office. At a certain point, you knew this was happening, and yet you kept supporting those same politicians. And guess what? They're going to continue to support the same politicians.
Yeah, this is think back to the Trump's 2016 campaign pledge, right? He said to Black Americans, African Americans, they've been lying to you. They've been lying to you 50 years. What do you got to lose? Vote for me. He goes, I'll be truthful with you. And then look what happened. Some of the greatest financial upswings and jobs, college that happened to African Americans as well as all other minorities in this country because he didn't lie to them. But they're so used to being lied to, Craig. Listen, it's just like you said, your father voted for them, your grandfather voted for him, and go back generations, and they've all voted for him because that's what we do. We're Democrats. Well, they're not voting for the Democratic Party anymore. Now they're voting for these individuals that go up there and do stupid stuff. If they were tied to the principles of the Democrat Party, all we'd be, arguing about, Craig, is maybe a difference in foreign policy, right? But it's instead, this is what happens. Now you have generational voting yourselves into worse ways.
Well, and you know, Mike, the worst part about it is they do it under the guise of saying, well, you know what, we're just tired of, young black men being disproportionately put in jail, right? But the problem is that that's because they're disproportionately committing crimes, and what they refuse to acknowledge is the victims of those crimes tend to also be black people or people of color, because as we've always talked about, statistics show people tend to attack their own. Like, doesn't matter if white, black, Latino, most people tend to victimize people of the same ethnicity. It's not a racial thing. It's just that's because you're going to victimize the people who are mostly around you. And while they're totally concerned over this 20-year-old Austin Amos, who quite frankly should have been in jail, they ignore the Guten. I will not even try to attempt to pronounce his last name, but he was the one who was beaten to death and robbed, right? And that's who they wind up forgetting, is the fact that the victim. If you really want to talk about supporting, disproportionately, people of color, black people being affected, well, dude, how about this? How about their victims? How about focusing on protecting the victims of these crimes rather than the perpetrators of the crimes?
Because they don't care. Remember, this is not their target audience for
Nope.
for getting the vote. This is, Craig. This is not only black on black crime. This is black on black immigrant crime.
Right.
And I'm in Florida. This crime is not, nobody has the news of this. And I'm willing to bet I know how you got this story, because I gave you another New York story. And when you pulled up the New York paper, this one was the story right below it. Otherwise, you in California never would have known this story either. This is not the story they want us to know.
Well, I get the story because I spend the time perusing the news on the right and the left. And anyway, but yeah, no, that's how I got the story. But that's how once again, there's not many outlets that are carrying both of these stories, that are talking about these issues. And once again, you're 100% right. I'll bet you the New York Times isn't covering this. I'll bet you the New York Daily News isn't covering it. It's definitely probably not on the local TV stations because once again, they don't care. This is not a story they want to tell.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But however, Craig, if perhaps this cab driver had himself a personal defense weapon, this wouldn't have happened.
Well, exactly. There you go. If he had a personal defense weapon, it wouldn't have happened. Although it would have been a whole different story, because they would have been calling for him for shooting an unarmed black man. And you wouldn't see his picture, by the way. You wouldn't see him. They wouldn't tell you that he was also a person of color, an immigrant. They know because that didn't fit the narrative. They would make it seem like a white European cab driver shot an unarmed black man.
That's right. Yeah, he's Macedonian or something like that. They would have said.
Exactly.
That's why he's got a funny name. Yeah.
But yeah, so these are one example of things going. Now, this is an example of things going two different directions in the same frigging city. Now, going from coast to coast, you have California, where I'm at, and then you have Florida, where Mike is at. And you have educational institutions heading two different directions. And in the defense of California, or at least of UC Berkeley, this is not exactly an official policy of UC Berkeley, but there is a housing complex that is for UC Berkeley students. This is off-campus student housing, and this is a private company. But what they have done is that it's a co-op, and what they have done is basically have banned white people from their facility. So in other words, you cannot live there if you are a white person. And if you are visiting someone who does live there, you have to notify and get permission of the other residents before you can bring a white person home. Mike, this is some crazy stuff. I mean, I cannot believe that in a place like Berkeley, that this is actually a policy, and most people don't care about it.
I wonder, Craig, is it like a hotline, or is it a help desk that you have to go to apply to bring the white people home? Is that how does that work?
It doesn't give the specifics on how exactly you're supposed to get permission. It just says that in the article that you are supposed to get permission.
Supposed to get permission person. Let's be clear. The way I understand the story, you tell me this is off-campus housing. It is restricted to students only, but it's private it's not owned by the state. So it's not UC Berkeley doing this.
It's like
It's
a
this
private.
private
It's like a
company.
private
Okay.
apartment complex.
Yes. Okay. Now, I still think there's pressure to lay on UC Berkeley. You go to them and say, "What's the deal? Why do you have this relationship with them? Why are you allowing this to happen?" But yeah, this is kind of ridiculous, right? We're going just total 100%. The opposite way of racism, right? We're gonna not only are we coming the other way, we're gonna ban white people. No white people around. No whites allowed. This is what the signs are gonna say. Clearly a discriminatory policy. This should be a simple, walk down to the courthouse and get this kind of quashed kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, well it should be a simple complaint to the local housing authority ought to resolve the problem, because once that comes out, then if not at the local, state, or state level, at the very least at the federal level, this has got to become an issue. This has got to become an issue. And when you consider that we actually have a law in the books that doesn't allow for discrimination based on race, or even policies based on race, you've got to figure that they have got to enforce this. They've got to address this issue somehow. But the problem is that if there's one group that it appears to be okay to discriminate against, it's white people, especially if you are a straight white Protestant male. Then it is okay to discriminate. It seems to be okay to discriminate against you in the most progressive parts of the state.
Yeah, and that's pretty clear. That's happening in most of the progressive parts of the country as well, not just in your state. So, we hear it all the time, right? How many times we got to hear the FUD jokes or the old fat white guy joke or whatever you want to call it. It's the one that it's okay to, because it's politically incorrect for those people, for us people, to white people, to respond.
Well,
Otherwise,
exactly,
we're racist.
because if you do,
Yeah.
if you claim you're not racist, then that in fact makes you racist.
That's right. That's how you say I'm racist. By the way, you say I'm not
Right.
racist. Yeah,
I'm not racist.
yeah, that's it. I have plenty of other non-white friends.
Some of my best friends are black.
That's it. Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly.
Right.
That's how that stuff kind of works. Moving right along, we got more from Mar-a-Lago. Now, this was we've heard people make statements that the president declassified these documents already. Whereas a former White House aide, his name is Kash Patel, and he has actually been one of the loudest proponents of the fact that the president that things that were in a box marked confidential were not in fact confidential, that they actually had been declassified. Now, Mike, I have not really read into how exactly the president goes about declassifying documents, but I do know that the big question on some of this may literally just come down to, one, did the president have the right to declassify documents? And number two, did he follow through on that process with these documents? But number three, is that really the reason that all of this is going on? Because if that's it, that's not the smoking gun that they're claiming that they have.
Yeah. Again, they claim they have the smoking gun, and they do not. There is nothing there. It's a giant nothing burger, as the former president would have said. Greg, I would address that. You're seeing reports that the president, there was a group of people that widely knew of his declassification, techniques or policies, and you're hearing from a number of people that are saying, "Oh, that's not true. I never heard that. That's true. I never heard that." And so my response to that is, well, maybe you weren't in that group of people. He didn't say how large that group of people was. He said there was a group of people. It might have been a very small group of people that included Cash. It might not have included everybody else, because they belong to the swamp. And he didn't want them in that group. Maybe that's the reason. Let me go over some declassification rules. Right, if you want to declassify an item, let's say I'm in possession of some top secret information and I want to get it declassified. The only way for me to get it declassified is go to the authoring source and have them declassify it, or the next higher echelon to have it declassified. So, all right, if I'm middleman, Craig, to make sure I got this clear, I got this top secret information that we really need to make known in order to do whatever we want to do. I can't declassify it. I have to get the person who authored the item to declassify it, or their bosses, a higher echelon above that. It's that simple to get declassification. Craig, do you know what the highest echelon would happen to be in our government and executive branch?
I believe that would be the president of the United States.
That would be the president of the United States. If he wanted to go around the room like Oprah, declassifying things, I declassify this, I declassify that, I declassify that. Guess what? They're declassified. Just because it still has a stamp on it that says TSSCI, well, I'm not going to go reprint another one without it. Okay? You put a little, you're supposed to put a little line through it and initials or something like that. That's it. That's all there is to it. He could walk around the White House all day long and say, I declassify, and guess what? Legally, it's declassified.
Right. Well, my point is, I'm sure that there is a process for that, and I would at least like to know what that process is, and did he do it? I believe he did, because otherwise, what was the point of taking those documents, of taking them, of having them? Why would you put yourself in that situation?
What I think he did, and I've seen a story comparing to what he did to what the vice president did. The vice president, when he declassified certain documents for his national archives, for his personal library, stuff that was going to be cataloged by National Archives in his possession, he went through the manual and wrote each item out and put it in a log, or probably typed it, or had his secretary type it, and they sent that forward, right? Because Mike Pence has got 40 years of government service, right?
Right.
So he knows all about classifying and declassifying products. The president, however, what do we like best about him? What's the reason this guy got elected? Because he wasn't a member of the government. So maybe he didn't follow step 1, 2, 3 in their manual. But guess what? It's his name at the bottom of the manual, right? If he decides this is the method I'm choosing to declassifying, it's declassified. It's that simple.
Well, yeah. Once again, did he follow the process? Didn't he? Look. My thing is none of this rises to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors.
No.
The sort of stuff that would require a raid on the former president's house.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah.
It is insane. No. It is stupid. Speaking of stupid, Dennis Rodman is back in the news. Dennis Rodman has said that he plans to go on over there to Russia and seek the release of Brittany Griner. For those, she is the WNBA basketball player who was basically caught with some stuff, some hashish in her luggage, and as a result is now going to be serving. She was sentenced to 9 years in Russian prison, and we've been negotiating for her release, and we've been offering up, terrorists and criminals and all of that in order to release a WNBA basketball player who doesn't want the national anthem played at WNBA games.
Here's my impression also of how President Biden is negotiating with Russia. They tell him no, and he's like, "How about now? No. How about now? No. How about now? No." I think they're doing that back and forth every day because it's going nowhere. And I brought this story up, Greg, because I thought there might be a laugh or two in it. But I have to tell you, I think this is a good thing for Dennis Rodman and for the country. Now, obviously, I don't care about this with this woman in jail. As long as she's treated humanely and they don't beat her, abuse her, she broke the law, she should be in prison. It just happens to be in their prison. Now, Dennis Rodman, I know the worm is still looked at and looked upon by a lot of people like, look at this goofball, what's he doing now? He has become quite the statesman. All right. How many countries has he gone to now to do outreach and rescue missions, including North Korea? I would legitimately, if I had to say, I would legitimately call him a statesman at this point, with his ability to go to countries with that reputation, to sit with the head of these countries and have these conversations. Tell me, besides a Michael Jordan who just wants to go and shake some hands, tell me some other NBA player that would have that power to do that. Or former NBA player.
The point of allowing Dennis Rodman to come is to basically poke fun at the United States, and in the end, where it winds up where it can be a potential benefit is it can wind up making our leadership look stupid because they release her to him instead of to our president. It makes our president look stupid, not Dennis Rodman. And so if he's willing to take advantage of that in order to get the release of Brittany Griner. Okay. I happen to think if you commit a crime in a foreign country and You know, you ought to be careful about committing crimes in foreign countries. How about that?
I agreed, and I started that out. I started out by saying that I think that she should be,
Yeah.
over there. She's not over there as a political prisoner. She's there because she broke their local laws. I understand that, and I get that. Maybe there's some sort of hardship thing. If she's got young children at home or something like that, I could see petitioning that. That way, family could visit. Along those lines. But that's not the case here. All right.
Right.
The point I'm trying to make with this story was that I believe Dennis Rodman is a legitimate statesman at this point. You tell me, you really believe that? Let's see now. When he went to North Korea, nobody had gone to North Korea before. When he went to North Korea, he got in there. He paved the way, sat down with that wacko to where our president could go and sit down with that wacko. And then our president was the first president to set foot in North Korea since before there was a North Korea. Right. And I listen, as goofy as he is, listen, we send Carter around every once in a while when we can still wheel him out. Right. How great a president was he? Right. You could become, I think it's possible to become a statesman afterwards. We've seen both George Bush the first do that. We saw Bill Clinton do that. Remember when they went to where the flood was, the tidal wave oh boy. I forget where they did the flood relief over there. They went and became statesmen. They go around the world, talk to foreign leaders. They're kind of like the unofficial ambassadors that the president will send when there's an issue that he probably personally shouldn't get involved in, but he's sent on their behalf. I believe Dennis Rodman has become one of those people.
Wow. That is a sad state of our foreign affairs. That does not speak well of our foreign affairs. Let me just say.
Well, listen. I mean, now, are you telling me he's not a smart man? Are you telling me he's not capable of making a decision on his own?
I'm telling you that I don't take Dennis Rodman seriously as a statesman. No.
Okay.
I don't, because
I tend to disagree.
I actually
we all know it's
listen
okay
to what he says, and half of it is nonsense. The other half is gibberish.
Right. Now, I don't think he's over there negotiating, nuclear trade deals, okay? Mm-hmm. But he is a person that can get access to this country and to their leader and sit down and say, my president would really like to talk to you. And they're going to hear him. That makes you a statesman by definition.
Okay. I will allow you to have your definition.
We know that we're allowed to disagree, and we all know that you've been wrong before, so it's okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Moving right along, talking about statesmen, I know someone who is not a statesman, or at least statesman in the terms of the ability to speak and render thought coherently. This individual would happen to be our president. And this is just the most recent conglomeration of Biden-isms that have come out. But I find it to be highly entertaining as well as saddening at the same time. So I guess if this guy can be president and be considered a statesman, then Dennis Rodman can be considered a statesman, or maybe could potentially be president.
Based on this level of comparison, we can all be statesmen.
Let's lower the bar a little bit as to what a statesman is. Here we go.
Yep.
Do you think Joe Biden is fit to be president?
If it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway. From Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. Of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. The idea that Los Angeles and what am I doing here? For two reasons. One, we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, let me say another way. But the nature, not a solid meeting with they make a very good point. Here's the deal. Here's what drives the driver in the States. that are affected. Here's what you can do, the drivers.
We want to expand pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds, millions of free care students.
Yeah, that is our current president of the United States. And while like I said, if that is the standard by which we are going to measure a statesman, then yes, Dennis Rodman can be considered to be a statesman.
And yet he's gone to North Korea and you haven't. I'm just saying. So
hey, if I had his basketball skills, I would have been able to go to North Korea. It doesn't make me a statesman.
It makes you the deliverer of messages from one executive to another.
Yeah, I honestly doubt that the president of the United States is, Trump maybe. I doubt that Biden administration is passing messages through Dennis Rodman to foreign leaders.
George Bush used Jimmy Carter to pass messages. That's what you do.
Once again,
have to be the
Jimmy
same
Carter,
party. Yeah.
Bad president, but you could consider him to be a statesman. Anyway, let's do this before we head out, man. Let's give another shout out to our sponsors.
On defense, though? I'm sorry. A little basketball joke. Let's talk Hitman Industries. Hitmanindustries.net. Hitmanindustries.net. Make sure you reach out to them and get you. Now you can order your own individual barrel parts, and they have more than just barrel parts. So check them out. Hitmanindustries.net. Our good friends in the California Republican Assembly fighting the fight there, and then of course, get your tactical gear at uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. Check them out. Visit them. Tell them that we sent you. With that, we're going to call it a day. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will see you tomorrow on Taco Tuesday.